You are now live on Channel 8 and YouTube.
All right, thank you, Hannah. All right, the time is 4:30 p.m. on this 19th day of November, 2025. I'm Justice Graves, Chairman of the Capital Improvements Committee for the town of Templeton. I call this meeting to order. Please stand and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So with that, we do have a quorum of our members here this evening. We have myself, we have Candace Graves from the Select Board, Danielle Kirby from the Treasurer Collector's Office, and our ex-officio member, James Ryan. Elizabeth Toth could not be with us this evening. She did let me know that. So with that, we have everyone that we're anticipating and we have quorum, so we will start business. The first item of business, second on our list, is the review and approval of the meeting minutes. I know everybody got a copy of the final meeting minutes. Those will get posted onto, I'll look at those will get posted onto my town government, because we had already approved those at a prior meeting. And then there's the new set of minutes for October 29th, 2025. Has everybody had a chance to look over the minutes? Or do we need some time on that?
I'm good. I can make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the minutes of October 29th, 2025. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Danielle seconded that. All right, is there any discussion on the motion to accept the minutes? I might have something you can second. So the only thing I would add, and this is on the approval of the meeting minutes, would be to add in the who motioned and seconded for the minutes of the 17th and October 22nd. Because I don't see that on there back when we did it for the minutes 17th of September 17th. It was Candace that made the motion, Danielle seconded it with the amendments, and then the minutes of 10th, Candace motioned it and Danielle seconded it. And both passed unanimously with amendments. And then for the motion to adjourn at the very end, I would just include that Candace made the motion, but Danielle seconded it. Those would be my only amendments to the minutes.
As amended.
Okay. Does anyone want to second the amendment? Can you want to accept that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the minutes as amended. On the amended motion, does anyone have any more discussion?
I'm good.
You know, Candace,
I'm good.
James, good. Okay, on that amended motion, how do you vote, Danielle?
Yes.
Candace?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That unanimously passed 3-0. Good.
Amended.
All right. I will coordinate with Liz on that, and then we will get those posted on the website.
Nice.
Item number 3. So we are now at the point in our capital season where we need to start making decisions. Or at least start to formulate an opinion and then get to some decisions. So what I like to do, just to ground where we are in developing the FY 2027 capital report, keeping in mind that the capital committee has to determine what our project recommendations are going to be for FY 2027 to create and update the capital improvement plan, and then to debate on the content of our report, including any final comments and observations to give to the selectmen and to the advisory committee. So with that in mind, those are the 3 throughputs that are going to be guiding this evening as we go through discussion items on our agenda number 3 and number 4. Which cover talking about the capital improvement plan, as well as any possible changes that we might want to do with that, and to develop any recommendations. I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts on just sort of the throughput of this committee this evening. But that's sort of, that is the plane of attack that we will go for that. With that, there were a few items that were transmitted to all of you. In the interest of time, a lot of the draft capital report that you received via email does not have anything from this year's listed in it. And there's a lot of sections that have not been updated yet. That has a lot to do with that we have to just end up making our recommendations, as well as the fact that in the interest of time, I prioritized getting the spreadsheet that everybody has a large size copy of so that we could look at least what the new project proposals were. In addition to that, everybody should have received copies of an updated version of the capital budget program that James had transmitted out. And another document that everybody has in the room is the fire chief did give us some information regarding the life of some of his vehicles, some of his items, and an email attachment that everybody received as well, that we will have to use as we kind of go through both this evening and at our next meeting. But with that, I think the logical next jumping point here, unless anybody wants to jump in, is we did receive, and I know that James had talked about at the end of the last meeting during committee member comments, about changing or about making adjustments to the form of how we do our capital plan. So I will kind of open the floor, and James, if you want to talk about that with all of us.
Sure. So now I'll give a formal presentation. So in your packets, I supplied three items. Two of them are departmental capital templates, and then one of them is the master template that the departmental templates would roll up to. Starting first, I think it makes sense to look at the two departmental templates. I gave you police just as more of a common one, and each of these templates is also an example of how it might be filled out. Basically, taking from I used this in the last two towns that I was in. This is from Salisbury. Lieutenant Delaria there does a great job, and just for, I guess, to give you to potentially help out or whatever, I did throw some of the items on there, so you'll see Chief Bennett's police car, and the radar trailer on there, and I think that was it. But you can see how. So what I tried to do was, so for example, if you go to like FY27-1 under details of justification, I added a line. Excuse me. I added a line under there that says, please include mention of any discounts, grants, trade-ins, etc., because you had that information on your current templates, and I thought that was good to remind department heads that detailed justification should still include this sort of information. But of course, these can be updated and modified to meet Templeton needs. This is just sort of an idea. By the way, I should preface that I understand I'm coming to you late in the process with this. Had I been here earlier, I would have liked to thought that I could have gotten this to you earlier. So I understand if it's a little late in the game for a change, but I just wanted to throw it out there. The other example I gave you, which I thought was just interesting to look at, is public services. It's even more complicated at Salisbury because all of their divisions are under the direction of Public Works. So again, there's the same example from Salisbury Police, but then as you'll see on the master roll-up template, there's separate sort of items for public services as far as highway and grounds and building and grounds and highway. But generally the templates are kind of the same, which is sort of the point. Public Works has, more in theory because they likely have more vehicles usually. But that being said, it all rolls up to the master capital template. So I printed off my own, but probably what you have on the top is the first page of the probably about 4-page document. is the high level roll up that just sort of breaks everything out by fiscal year and funding source. And then it breaks down a little more details. They call it the detail summary schedule, which breaks things out by funding source and then by department and then via fiscal year. And so you see in our case, enterprise funds, you'll have the sewer. And you could have grant funding, or if we, borrow outside the levy limit, that could be the school roof. And then it breaks down by even more detail, departmental detail schedule. So now it's broken down by department, and you'd be able to see all the individual items listed there. So I know it's a little abstract because it's an empty template. But imagine, in the police case, the cruisers and the radar, and if they have to replace tasers, so you'd see those listed, the dollar amounts, and then it would go out. And then in public services, that's what I was kind of mentioning earlier. Under public service, you see the highway and the building and grounds is separate. So we can kind of modify this. However, we need to make it fit Templeton's needs. In Salisbury, I think there was highway, sewer, water. I might be forgetting something. I think it was those three there: highway, sewer, water. And so that's kind of how it breaks down. And so again, this is the master summary. So you'd have all the individual department templates connected to this and attached. So you'd have a master capital booklet similar to what you're doing. And then of course you can overlay on top of it a letter or what have you from the committee detailing the work you did throughout the fiscal year. Now, if the committee did choose to move forward with this, if you like this and you were interested in seeing how we can implement it this year, I was thinking about that today, and depending on what you approve at this meeting or the next one, what we would put on here is just what you've sort of approved and what the departments submitted to you. And so there might be less on this year than there will be in future years, because in future years, the departments will more completely utilize the templates. But that would be a way to sort of basically make things easier. What you end up approving tonight or at the next meeting, that's what we would put on this, and we wouldn't also have the departments go out and say, well, also put on your 5-year outlook stuff, because you didn't have a chance to necessarily look at any additional stuff. So this year we would kind of take what we have and put it in this, and the next year we would more completely utilize the template. But that's if you would like to move forward with it. Like I said, late in the season, I understand if you want to wait a year, but I just wanted to give you the opportunity to think about it for now. And I think that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, James. Does
Yeah.
anybody have any discussion, questions?
So this is like a tracker so that we can track the progress. This will go up to how does the 5-year, like the 5-year plan, Justice,
What do you mean?
would fit into that version?
So, I mean, if you look at the overall schedule, I think you're seeing, the departments putting in what they're looking for and when they're looking
Right.
to request it for each of the fiscal years. Is that my understanding?
Yeah.
Yep. So this is a 5-year capital plan.
Okay.
And we can adjust it too. So, we could put the FY26 column in there and put that in, or we could wait till next year and leave FY27 and just roll forward the templates. But yeah, this is what your 5-year capital plan would be. Each year we'd roll forward these templates. I'd send these out, or whoever would send them out, would send these out to the department heads, and they would fill it in, and this would replace the sheets that you have going. So it would have, I think it has all the similar information. It's just sort of organized differently. And I'm happy to add any other boxes of stuff. I kind of looked at what you have, and this looks like it has most of it, but I'm happy that we could always tweak it if there's another piece of information you want in there. But under their details and justification section, that's where they could put pictures. That's where they could do write all this physical detail, talk about grants or trade-in values or whatever else they've done in planning their capital needs.
Any further discussion? Danielle, any thoughts?
I like how this looks, but I don't think the department heads are gonna do it this year, to be 100% with you.
No, I don't disagree with that, especially, I mean, the chief just provided that, the fire chief just provided that information to us today, you know, everyone's just been running around. I don't disagree with that sentiment. Um. Especially whereas we're running up against the clock with now December's literally, which is unbelievable. The only thoughts that I have are, I've seen similar things from this before. I mean, I forget which channel was it. It was either Rutland or Hubbardston. They like to have the pictures with the descriptions on each of their pages. So this is pretty standard for what other towns also utilize. Additionally, the only thing that I would caveat in terms of funding and how people are going to split out their funding is that so the way that I'm interpreting this is that department heads would be the ones to populate their individual sections, and then this would fill out to the front page. Is that correct?
Well, so I think what would happen was, when they submit their departmental ones, I would probably be responsible for, updating the 5-year capital plan for you. Because we're sending these out and like, fire and police are on a different IT network. I don't think the spreadsheets would talk to each other. And so that's what we had to do in other towns. So the departments would submit it back, and then I would populate, I would fill out this and make sure it's, rolled forward and matching and everything. It doesn't take a ton of time. It's useful document.
Right.
The only thing I would say about that is, I think if the committee wanted it, I think the department heads would fill this out for me. It would just be a matter of copying and pasting, essentially. Well, I don't know if copying and pasting is the right word, but some of the departments only have a handful of things. And it kind of just be, some of it might be copy and paste depending on how they saved their documents, but there's not a ton that they submitted, so it wouldn't be a ton of work. You could let me worry about that, and if I have trouble getting them to fill it out, then you just move forward with your document, but it's totally up to you. Again, I know it's late in the season. I just would be remiss if I didn't at least show it to you this fiscal year.
I don't disagree with that. And I know the fire chief brought this up, and I know, and I've always noticed that Bob always prints his forms out and handwrites them. I know that the fire chief had some issues and brought it up with me with our PDF file this year. But that might have just been because of the computer thing, different operating systems. I know we had talked about that. I've seen different departments do different things with it. Like with our current sheet, we always, I mean, there's a drop down menu that, for example, there's what your priority is, but some departments like to handwrite or put their priority on a completely different scale than any other ones. I mean, if you look at the chart, you see, some people saying ASAP, high, moderate, and other people are using like the 2 for essential, 1 for like a higher priority, and then, going down the list, or others have a completely different numbering system. So, I mean, all of us have to use Excel because, right, this isn't an Excel program. All of us have to use Excel from when we have to do, when different groups have to do their budget submissions. So I don't see this as necessarily being an issue with that. But some people did handwrite or save their documents in a different form, so they would have to replicate some of it.
Well, and also too, I should have mentioned this, because this is a new format. I would sit with the department heads and just go over their template with them so they knew how to use it. And obviously each year I would roll the templates forward so that it's all set up, and I could help them populate a tab, because I think just by default I did for like public services, I think I did 2 or 3 items per fiscal year. That may not be what he needs. He might need 2, then 3, then 4, then 2, and then whatever. So, but I would sit down with them and go over the template with them, because it would be new. So there would be a short training.
So would this be versus, doing it with the application on top of it? Like, in the budget, you have your budget book and in that one, you just putting all your stuff in and doing it. If they're similar to that and you're putting it into the system, they're just plugging it in. Do they do that and then just send the quotes?
So yeah, so they would fill out their budget template like this.
Yeah, for this one, yeah.
Yeah, so they would do that. And then in addition to that, in addition to submitting this, they would submit any sort of quotes that are required.
Top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
This would just
So
basically,
this would be versus the application is what I was asking. Is this taking the place of the
It
application?
would sort of, to my understanding, roll in both what we've done with the spreadsheet and the application.
Okay. I mean, how will that print like to look at when you're sitting in a meeting versus, you know, even the applications?
Well, we've got this, I mean, this is why I printed it out, these are what
Yeah.
this is almost exact, it's boilerplate, but it's exactly what we would see.
Okay,
generally.
all right.
yeah,
I mean-
Correct, James?
Filling,
Yeah,
filling out the application, all that application and having just to fill in these lines and then give the quotes on that end, I would find that very pleasant.
well, they still have to describe what's going on with the details and justification, they're not just submitting.
Right.
so what we used to do is, we used to take all the templates like this and put them in a book.
Yeah.
So you could open it up and look and then, you know, flip and stuff. So we used to create a nice capital book each year.
I just think this format would be easier than filling out the application if you weren't doing the application on top of it.
Right,
I like this for the, I'm just saying my perspective of filling out the application on the other end of it. It was like, you know, but this is like boom, boom, boom. Seems like it would take me less time to fill this out. I could spend more time getting the quotes and things and the data.
Yeah, it's meant to be pretty easy. And it's visually kind of pleasing to see things by the fiscal year. I mean, that's the way my mind works, and maybe it's because I was trained, how I was trained
Yeah.
in this stuff. And so,
I
but
mean,
it does kind of remind you of like, you know, operating budget and stuff, the way we use the Excel sheets.
my only two caveats would be on this. That. My only two caveats would be in terms of. Trying to get the departments to stay to a set priority schedule, you know, is it? Absolutely must needed, is it, you know, because there's nothing on each of these forms that says, you know, what is the actual priority on this?
Yeah.
The only reason I mention it is because of what the situation that we ran into after what happened with Capital last year with
Yeah.
the bulletproof vests. That's just,
Yeah.
you know, the standard
you
example.
put another, like a small column next to it.
I could, but and I could and I would if you wanted, but I would say that so I'd say that a couple of things. So up at the top, if you look at one of the templates, it says, you know, request number FY, it's the example, but it's in our case, FY 27-1. The department should be ordering it in that priority. So if you're the police chief, and I'm not putting words in his mouth, but just for the sake of this example, FY 21-1 police cruiser, that would be his top priority. And down the justification box, you know, maybe next to details and justification, I can put priority level and in parentheses, high, medium, low, and then they could put the word in high, medium, or low. That would easily fit right next to there.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't need to be a column at the bottom because that doesn't make any sense because we're looking at what qualitative data versus quantitative data. That's not really gonna help us on that, but I see your point where you would imagine that the department puts their top priority as item number 1.
Yeah.
In practice, I don't know if that's to,
That would probably be part of the instruction. We would probably have, you know, when whoever sends out the templates, me, you, whoever, there could be a little instruction letter that I'm happy to write that, you know, talks about some of the stuff we're talking about today. But like I said, there is space right next to that details justification.
yeah,
If you wanted that would look pretty nice right there.
yeah, I think that would be good just to put it right next to it, yeah. And then it doesn't have to just be high, medium, and low, it could be, I would have to look and see. Honestly, it could be any combination of either high, medium, or low, or whatever the numbering system would work for the committee, so that way we have a set, this is what.
Yeah, and I would put in,
is,
and I put it in parentheses so they know to choose from those options.
Right.
That way, because you were talking about the difference in how people sort of,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, because then it just makes our job harder where it's like, okay, how do we weigh a high versus an ASAP? I mean, ASAP. But
Yeah,
because we're going to talk about that.
yeah, but if you give them like, if it's limited on a form like this where they only have a certain choice,
Yeah,
that might be helpful on that one.
yeah, that they absolutely shouldn't just be writing in
ASAP.
ASAP.
and their justification should also justify, the urgency as well, If someone,
They have a bunch of ones, we get it. These are all important.
if someone writes, high for a priority, then the justification on these should also, indicate to us that it's urgent or necessary. It could be contractual obligation that should be, in the details.
Yeah. The other thing that I would caveat is that this is unusual, but the way that this committee is organized through bylaw, that we shall annually collect its proposed items for the coming 6 years from all departments, and then we have to do a 5-year capital plan. So,
I read that. It almost sounds like it doesn't match.
no, well,
Do we need a bylaw change?
I don't know. I don't know what the logic was back then for saying, hey, let's get 6 years of information and push it into a 5-year plan. But the way that I always do it on my spreadsheets and other materials that this committee has done is that, the fiscal year that you're aiming for, which is the next upcoming one, in our case, fiscal year 27, I just consider that, you consider it year one, or you can consider it the year that you're working towards. And then for the 5-year capital plan, so to speak, I always say that it's the next 5 ensuing years. So fiscal years 28 through 2032 are the next 5 years after that. But I just did that as a more stricter interpretation of the bylaw as opposed to what I do. But I just wanted to bring that up, that if we did go with this and this really supplanted the forms, that it would have to reflect that until there was a bylaw change, if there was a bylaw change on that. To ask them, what do you plan on doing for that 6th year? Because otherwise, we just have to do that. So with that being said, I don't know, does anybody have any specific thoughts? I think we've talked quite a bit about this and what we'd like to see. Does anybody want to implement it for this particular fiscal year? Or for what we're trying to plan for this?
It just seems like it's gonna be like you have to plug the data in. I think getting them ready for next year would be would be less work. And plug the stuff in. I mean, using it in the sense of plugging it in the data in at the end of this season for next season would be more realistic. Since we've already done the application process.
Right. Danielle.
I agree.
Okay. All right. I would like to see, at the very least, this kind of come back with some of the edits that we've just kind of discussed.
Sure.
Just a bare, but it doesn't have to be what you would send out with the 3 different spreadsheets. It can be the, just an example one with those amendments to it. And then at the end of the capital season, we can have that, and then we can push that to the next committee. They would ultimately have to decide whatever group that ends up being, but at least then we've got hey, this is what we're kind of recommending for you guys to use
your
for the next year.
Yeah,
And
since
that
we've
way.
already.
Can I ask
We already collected the applications already.
Could I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
So between the kind of discrepancy between what the bylaw is saying,
Yeah.
you tell me if you think this makes sense. Next year, let's say we decided to go with this next year.
Yeah.
And you had the year we were working in, FY 27,
Yeah.
and then 5 additional years. Do you think that would be a 5-year capital plan, but with 6 years presented?
Well, if we're talking about next year, the year that we would be working in is towards fiscal year 2028, because at that point, we've already set the budget for fiscal year 2027.
Yeah, right, I
It's
understand.
always the year ahead, and then it would be 29 through 33. I mean, it's 6 years on a capital plan realistically, because you're talking about, because we're always talking about the year ahead right now. But because we need to solicit that 6 years of information, we need to have that 6 year on the sheet. That's,
We just made it difficult.
So normally, most towns do. Normally the towns do a 5-year capital plan. So this year, what this would normally look like is that you'd have FY 26 here, because when you roll the template forward, you might as well just keep the 26 year. It looks good because you can kind of see what you're doing. But then as I showed, as the highlighted column, and then there's your 5 years. But in our case, are you saying that you want a 6-year capital plan? So if we were doing it this year, we would do 27 through 32.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It would be 27 through 32.
Mm.
Well, that's what we're gonna be discussing about is the 28 through
So we wouldn't,
27
so
through 30.
we wouldn't be carrying over the current year, even though we're not working on 2026, we're working on 2027. We wouldn't keep on the spreadsheet 2026 and go that way.
Well, generally,
It's good, but it's getting now the document's getting long because we have an extra year
Yeah,
plus
Okay,
the back year.
yeah,
So I don't know. I never really found especially when it came to capital, I never really found the back year all that useful.
okay.
So if we're gonna have a 6-year capital plan, at least until someone changes a bylaw, then we probably just keep the 6 years that we're working on.
and the bylaw says, just to clarify, that it's a 5-year capital improvement plan, but again, we have to solicit information for the coming 6 years on forms designed for those employees.
Hmm.
So,
All right, so actually, here's another idea. You may not like this, but it's just an idea. So let's say we were doing it this year. So it looked like it looks now, but then we could put a FY 32 after the 5-year total. And so it look a little goofy, but it would meet the idea of the bylaw where we collected 6 years, but we're showing you a 5-year capital plan. Or the yeah. Well, so the master summary could just have the 5 years, but on the departmental ones, we have that sort of FY, in this case, FY 27 to 31, and then the 5 years, and then 32, 32 right there.
Yeah,
So that way that we're collecting 6, but it's not going to mess up our roll up to the 5-year capital.
the way that I sort of interpret it, maybe just going past each other here, is that I always interpret, because of this issue, that the year that we're working towards is what our initial recommendations are, and then anything after that is what we're trying to actually plan for. So the year of 2027, which is what we're trying to build recommendations are, is what I would call sort of the working year that we're trying to build towards. And then it's the 5 years after that are the capital plan itself.
do we
I
need,
just do it as a more strict interpretation of it, that it's really just,
Yeah, that's
do you need to
not
have the
how-
line that says, excuse me, do you need to have the line that says 5-year total and just put the year, boom, 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 boom? What's the total for?
what are we talking about?
It says 5-year total, right?
Right,
Right, instead of having the 5-year total line, so you're just gonna do,
and you can still do 5-year total, it's just what 5 years we're talking about.
no, I meant you do fixed 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you do it's in that box, it'd be FY 32.
So you're saying get rid of the 5-year total?
Yeah, do you need the total? Like what?
I do think so, because
You do?
I do think so, because we kind of want to know over 5 years or more.
That big, you just split it in half and.
Hmm.
You can have FY 20, and then it can be, I mean, does it have to be that big of a box?
I think we're just getting too much
Yeah.
into the details on what to
Okay.
actually care, as opposed to the higher level conversation on what is the actual 5-year plan, we're getting into how do we split the box on the spreadsheet.
Yes.
And we can,
Okay,
like, what I would like to see if this came back, at least this is just my interpretation, it would be for the next ensuing year. So it would be for fiscal year 2028 in the initial box instead of fiscal year 2027.
Mhm.
Then you'd see 29 for 33, and then it would be whatever total the committee feels is more fit for it, whether or not they push 33 onto the other side of that, whether that doesn't bother me at all.
Okay. Sounds good.
Does that have to go on, James?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
for sure, for
That's-
sure.
okay.
All right, we're good. So all right, so bring it back So that way we at least have a very general template to just pass forward to the next committee, and then they will do with it as they please.
Absolutely.
All right, sounds like a plan.
Like a plan.
All
Right,
right, so
thank
with
you.
that, we will move on to our current situation with trying to develop our capital report. Everybody's got the gigantic spreadsheet and stuff that I have prepared for them. Thank you to Joe for that. So what you'll see are the 30 proposals that came in. This spreadsheet doesn't include any of the information that we received from the department heads on more of their 5-year outlooks. When we go to our next meeting, we can talk about that a little bit more. But what we really need to do is start to figure out what or how we're going to approach making recommendations this year. Different from prior years, we typically, it wouldn't just be that we have, different from prior years. We're trying to look at everything through the 5-year plans. So we really have to build out that 5-year plan that we started last year. And then additional to that, in even trying to develop recommendations for fiscal year 2027, essentially for what would be potentially brought to the annual town meeting in 2026. We do not necessarily have a given budget for capital this year. I asked the town accountant how much we had in capital stabilization fund, and current balance of the fund was $60,000, $338.89. So with just over $60,000 left in capital stabilization fund, and with free cash and retained earnings not certified to date, that is a big difference from how we usually try to figure out our plans. Part of the reason why stabilization would be low, if anybody remembers, is that we didn't at the time appropriate any free cash into stabilization because we used it all for different budgeting purposes, and then we used what we had in capital stabilization when we had almost over 200,000 in it for the senior center kitchen back at the special town meeting in December of 2024. So that is what has led us here today. In terms of free cash being certified before we determine what our plans would be, it's very unlikely that free cash would be certified before Thanksgiving at this point. That's the information that I've gotten from the town accountant, although she has submitted information to the state today. So it's one of those situations where we kind of have to, before we even know what, we're kind of working without a budget to try and figure out what our recommendation should be. We don't know how much in capital we'll be able to use. And on top of it, we do need to prepare this report before the end of December, because we have to present to the selectmen. So with all of that, are there any items?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
I think I can help you with one thing. The bulletproof vests, I know why the chief submitted this. I think it was a timing thing. That's all taken care of.
okay,
We found a way to pay for those this year, and so that can be taken off because I assume, well, it has to be. He's trying to get the money to pay for that from last year, but that's going to be all set.
okay, so we can cross off that concern. I was worried about that because I know that it was part of his presentations, but I didn't know what we were doing with that, so to be handled / just handle. It's already handled in the current year, so I'll just make a note of that if everyone's okay with that. In this report this year, he did present it, but I'll just make a note that that it's being dealt with within the current fiscal year if everyone's okay with that. So with that, if we exclude item number 3, which is the bulletproof vests, we have 29 items in front of us.
Well, I think the generator should go right up there. They keep on putting it on. And
Right.
it's probably something that we could probably maybe afford. if we get any money.
Well, and additionally, some of these are repeats, but we also have the issue of, because of what happened last year, that we have items that have been represented that were approved last year. So for example, items that fit under this category would be just go through this.
What else did we approve last year? I think the generator was one,
Yeah, the generator was.
and the
one.
windows.
Yeah, so like, for example, the generator was one from last year. That's an issue. That's item number 17 on the list. Utility pickup truck, Bob. Item number 24. Was one of the ones that was recommended. How pavement and permanent sidewalks was also recommended last year and was done. And that's it.
Justin,
Yes,
sorry to interrupt, but we have someone who joined the meeting. We just need an ID on them so we know who it is.
okay,
Hey.
for the person who's, oh.
Hey, it's Liz.
oh,
So
hello, Liz.
I couldn't figure out how to change the name on it, so I was just trying to figure that out.
Okay, all right, so that's Liz Toth that's joined us via Zoom, just so that everybody is aware, so we do have everybody. Liz, where we're at right now is that we've just approved, with amendments, the meeting minutes of October 29. We've kind of gone over the three objectives of us as we work through developing the capital report, which is we have to figure out our FY 2027 capital recommendations, what our next 5-year capital plan is going to be, and then to figure out what is going to be debated for the content of the report. So those are the 3 points and through lines. Additionally, we did instruct the town administrator to come back with a variant of the template that he sent out to us so that we can push an updated template to next year's capital improvements committee if they want to do that. Because we talked about where we were in this season, but we did talk about how we did wanted to see that moving forward. There were a few modifications that we talked about in terms of how many fiscal years on the form, as well as a priority ranking system be within the spreadsheets that went out. Liz, did you have a chance to look at all the information that was sent out, or at least some of it?
Actually, no, I haven't.
That's
But
okay.
well, I saw the version previously that he had
Okay.
shared, and I was quite happy with that because I was hoping we could do it this year, but it sounds like we're not going to. Because the sooner we start planning, the better. And but I'll leave that to the TA as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. So that's where we're at. What we're talking about right now is, so typically we would have by now, with free cash being certified, if it was certified, we would have a set amount of capital that we would know that we could use for FY 27. And then we would be able to sort of start building our initial recommendations off of that and then starting to build out into the future years that way. Fortunately, with this particular fiscal year, I will let you know that in terms of capital stabilization, we only have, I checked with the accountant on this today, $60,338.89 left in capital stabilization. Free cash has not been certified yet. I know that information was submitted by the accountant this week in order to get certification of free cash, but in all likelihood, that won't happen until after Thanksgiving is the information from the Department of Revenue that we've received. So that is where we are at with that. So we're sort of in a situation where we need to start debating what projects we need to start putting up for FY 27 and beyond, while also recognizing that as soon as we have an idea on what we can use for working capital, that might change our plans right before we do our final presentation to the selectmen. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay, so from a general perspective, if I may just say that I think anything that is a safety or compliance, either regulatory or, contract wise are the things that probably need to be at the top of the list if we can. When I joined, you were starting to talk about the generator. I think the generator is exceptionally important because, it's part of taking care of everybody, if we have another one of those huge power outages where we're out of power for, a couple of weeks. So I'm going to go back on mute though. So,
Okay.
okay.
No, that's fine. You can just interrupt in whenever you need to, because I might not see if you were to do the hand wave or anything on the screen, I might not see it. So just
Okay.
politely, but it's perfectly fine.
The,
Um,
I was gonna say the windows, I mean, Windows is gonna save us money if we have proficient windows in this building. I could feel the drafts coming right off of it right now.
So what I was gonna talk about is that what we're going through right now is in terms of what we've been presented, I'm going through what wasn't approved from last year that has been represented again, that we should probably take a hard look at and recommend in some fashion. Because again, they were recommended, they were on the list for last year, and they did not receive funding because of what happened with the budget planning on that. So for example, I was just highlighting that some of those items were number 17, which was the senior center generator, which was recommended last year. You had number 20, the town hall pavement and sidewalks, number 24, which was the utility pickup. We don't have to worry about. The bulletproof vests issue, the town administrator just informed us that he's taking care of it with the police chief in this fiscal year, so we don't have to worry about that. So that at least takes off one item from our agenda. The police radar trailer replacement was recommended in FY 26 and it wasn't. So that's item number 2. The bird problem in Narragansett, that was also recommended last year. That's item number 15. And then buildings and grounds, town hall window replacements were recommended last year, along with the hydraulic sander and the stand-up blower. So that was.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yep.
As far as the windows for town hall, that's part of the green community grant. I think that should be a fairly high number for the stuff for Templeton Elementary until we get the agreement, corrected with and updated with Phillipston. I don't think we should be spending our money on that right now. Because they should be, in my opinion, they should be doing, paying the 15% of the cost of things. So.
Mr. Chair, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
So I know we probably don't have this information in front of us at this moment. I did look at it was at least a 5-year look back of what our free cash was certified at in previous years. And it's on a slow decline. It looks like, although it's not truly linear, just for planning purposes, because I know you're going to run up, it sounds like you're going to run up to a point where you may only have one meeting or something before your report is due, by when free cash gets certified and when your report's due. So you're going to be, so I would look back to previous years. And again, I don't have this data in front of me. You probably don't, but just to see, last year sounds like it was an odd year, but the years before that, to see roughly how much you've been spending out of free cash to fund capital items and use a number that is typical, whether it's 250, 300, whatever you've been doing over the last, 5 years or so. And for planning purposes, I guess shoot for that number. And so you've already listed a bunch of high priorities. I'd be interested to see what that adds up to and how close that is to the sort of average of what you've been spending on free cash, just for planning purposes at this point. So it might be something to consider as we sort of, take a shot in the dark here.
Right, and even when free cash gets certified, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're gonna have a number for working capital, because then the TA and the select board need to go through that, I believe there's been an amended. There have been changes to how that gets figured out, but it's not just free cash gets certified and then, oh, capital's got this number that they can work with. It's usually, a week or so later, even after that. Because the TA has to take a look at that and what their plan's going to be, so.
Right, I already know that there's a chunk of money that's gonna have to come off the top of that. And then, I assume we're not gonna wanna spend every last dollar on all of this. We might want to put some money into the capital stabilization. So it would probably be a chunk of that. So I think figuring out sort of an average number and running with it will get you close to where you need to be, and it might make your last meeting or two a little easier.
In terms of what you talked about, in terms of them being high priorities, the items that I just listed off, it's not necessarily that they're high priorities. The reason why I'm highlighting that because it's a question this committee has to answer when it develops its plan is if we build a plan, how do we stick to it? So those items were ones that were recommended in FY 2026. It doesn't mean that they're all going to get re-recommended for FY 2027. But what it does mean is that we should highlight them and take a look and see as we figure out our FY 27 plan. If we recommended this last year and it wasn't funded for a particular reason, if it was important enough for the committee to fund or to recommend funding for last year, why wouldn't we fund it this year? Is my thoughts on that, but it's up to the committee at the end of the day how it wants to prioritize. Those are just the items that I wanted to highlight that were recommended last year and not funded. So that's the reason for that. It doesn't mean that they have to be recommended.
Is that all of them that we didn't fund last year?
Yeah, that was all from the from section 3 on the report, because that lists everything out. That happened last year, but that didn't.
Yeah.
With that being said, I guess there's two ways that we can sort of approach this. What might be a safe number, just for tonight as we're trying to go through this, and I can look at what we've been recommended for, what has been the working capital amount for the last few years, and then do a number under that. But I believe, I have to remember last year's report, but it was under 300,000. I think it was getting closer to the $200,000 mark for working capital. So for tonight's purposes, maybe we just use a goalpost around 200,000 for fiscal year 2027 and then build off of that. And if things change, then we can adjust accordingly. Does everybody have an issue with doing that? I can pull up over the next 2 weeks before our next meeting and get more of an actual estimate. But I know that we've been on the decline with free cash and 200,000. It was just over 200,000 last year that we were able to do, or that we should have been able to do. So that seems reasonable, at least as a goalpost, and then we can move the goalpost as needed before we do final. But do you have any issues with that?
No, I'm good with that.
Liz, are you okay with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. So with that, we can kind of approach it two different ways right now. We do have items that generally fall into the enterprise funds, and then we have everything else that doesn't have a category of funding outside of what the taxpayers have paid. So with that, does anybody, what we've done in the past sometimes is we've looked at what TCTV has, as well as say sewer, light and water, or any others, like for example, the library with the Boynton Library improvements, which they're using the request fund and CPA funds for. And we've discussed that, whether or not we're going to recommend it for fiscal year 27, or if there's a reason that we wouldn't do that. So that might be an easy starting point just to get through those items. And then that eliminates a lot off of our list because it looks a little bit bigger than it is after you take those out. And then we can sort of discuss in terms of safety matters, which ones we should recommend for future years.
Well, I think that doghouse thing outside this building is gonna be a big issue at some point. It's
Right.
really, it's awful.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, are you saying that you wanna go through the column that has, other funding sources other than tax
Yeah, why don't we
impact?
go through that first? I mean, there are some that have a mixed use and some of them will end up.
So I'll just comment, Mr. Chair. I spoke with the fire chief a couple weeks ago about the cardiac monitors.
Yeah.
I think that is a must for this fiscal year, and it's being paid for out of ambulance receipts anyway. So I think it's a must for this year.
Yeah.
So does anyone, okay, so we're talking about item number 4, the cardiac monitors, those the chief had talked about, $120,000 and some change. Estimated to come out of ambulance receipts. Does anybody have any discussion that we want to have on if we should or shouldn't recommend that for fiscal year 2027? Going once,
I think we should, since it's gonna be coming out of receipts.
right? But additionally, it's a safety issue.
Yep, that too.
Okay. So with that, does anyone want to make a motion to recommend the cardiac monitors, being funded out of ambulance receipts for fiscal year 2027?
I would like to make the motion that the cardiac monitors be
Recommended.
recommended out of the ambulance receipts.
Okay, I have a
And
motion.
I'll,
Do I have?
I'll second it.
No, second it. Okay. So we have a motion from Candace and a second from Liz. Is there any discussion on that? All right, with that, we will go to a roll call vote. Danielle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Liz, how do you vote?
Yes,
Candace, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That was unanimous 4-0. All right, so with that, we can go down to, if we just look at the list, most of the items that TCTV has, and we may want to do these individually, or we could do them as a group. I would make notice that if we do talk about item number 13, that I would have to abstain and recuse myself from discussion because of personal nature related to number 13. But other than that, does anyone have anything they want to talk about with regards to the TCTV proposals or their capital plan?
Guess my
I'd
only
just like-
thing.
go
Oh,
ahead.
No, James, you want to go?
Okay, I guess my only thing is retained earnings hasn't been certified yet. And so, and I'll admit that I don't think I've looked at TCTV's capital requests yet. I think I missed that or something, I don't know. But without the retained earnings being certified yet, I just don't have an opinion personally on that at this point. Stuff sounds nice, not gonna lie, but
Liz, what did you have? I know you were going to jump in.
Yeah, no, it's, I think there's only a couple of things on there that is, if if things break, that he wants to replace. So, I mean, I don't know if we really do want to take them one at a time, or basically say that it really depends upon retained earnings, because I don't think there's going to be enough money in the capital budget to be able to take care of some of his things.
No, and I agree with you, Liz. My caveat with, and this is a good point of discussion, and maybe it needs to be something in the report again. We had mentioned that there was a decline in retained earnings. There's been declines in retained earnings for cable enterprise for the past several years. It's been more noticeable on the budget book more recently. But the current situation, I mean, should we really approve all of these with the caveat of, if you have the retained earnings for it? Should there be stronger recommendations on it? I am of the opinion that that the town doesn't have the resources to subsidize the capital needs of TCTV if they don't have enough in their own budget for it, unfortunately. Because otherwise we have to figure out how to prioritize them and fighting with, I use the word fight loosely, fighting with all the other demands and needs of the town. Because then we have to consider them within the taxpayer expenses, you know, with regards to even police vehicles, the radar trailer replacement, all of those other ones. So that is something,
We did we did use free cash, not the retained earnings to supplement them, did we not, in the budget last year? I mean, the fiscal 2026? I mean,
no, I think we used the last of free cash from fiscal year. I think, if I remember correctly, $50,000 of free cash was used generally in their operating budget for fiscal year 2027. So that was put forward for 2027.
okay,
But I know that they had gone to town meeting at least once or at least twice last year to appropriate retained earnings into their operating budget. So. And then we just did that again at this last special town meeting.
yeah, it's just that, I mean, some of this could be just put through because they're getting that grant.
Well,
Did it say? I don't remember them saying.
I know Steve talked about that there were several grants, or it was just the digital equity grant that he was talking about. Additionally, they have an agreement going on with the light department for a pilot. The nature of how that's working, I don't know. I know that they have paid for a few things. So,
I think we have to table this right now for them until we get some more information on like the pilot part of it, like what would, like, if we know something will be covered off of this. It makes sense if we recommend it,
Yeah,
because
he would have to,
funding.
he would have to, Mr. Chair, he would have to, specify whether he expects to get money from the municipal light plant or retained earnings, because we need to know budgetarily how we're paying for this. That's, I guess, part and parcel of this process. And I didn't realize that. I was in pilot in my head. I was thinking like that's another term for,
payments in lieu of taxes.
yeah, but I was thinking that's another term they were using for the Comcast stuff, because there's another term they use for that. But I didn't realize that we were talking about municipal light plant.
Yeah.
pilot. So
I
that,
just couldn't fit that on the sheet, that's why I put light department.
yeah, he would, before this committee can accurately, vote on this, the conversations like that should have happened with the municipal light plant prior, to see if they would have entertained it. That way he could come to you and say, well, actually, it would just be off of this, because if the municipal light plant was going to pay for it, they could just pay for it. And he wouldn't need to necessarily, unless you required it, he wouldn't need to necessarily.
Yeah, he's required if it's over $10,000 to present it in general.
Even if the MLP will pay for it. Okay.
Yeah.
That was the source of-
Yeah,
Okay.
because of the source of.
So then I would have said that he would have had to come to us with one or the other. We need to know how this is being paid for, because we need to know, as the committee, what we are going to approve, how much money is going to come out of retained earnings right now. And I could probably understand why he did this, but if you guys need more information to do your jobs properly.
I'll caveat that when I was putting possible funding sources down there, I think some of them talked about retained earnings, some of them didn't. And some of them talked about grants and, components with the light department as well. So some of those descriptions might have to be updated a little bit, but all of them we're talking about, almost all of them, we're talking about the pilot, we're talking about the light department.
Okay.
And specifically on the road digital signage, that one specifically talking about economic funds or grants, which I think last time we talked about that, we didn't even know if we had attained that earmark of 20,000, 200,000 something odd dollars from the state. Liz, were you trying to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you wanted to go through any of these, I could tell you which ones I would support. But it sounds like it's premature. Waiting to find out where he's going to get the funds from.
Right.
Can I jump in and change the thought? I just want to pick off possibly a couple low hanging fruits. I just want to bring it to your attention. I know I'm jumping around a bit, so I apologize. So sewer retained earnings, the sewer division is department's only asking for one vehicle and it's coming out of retained earnings. So, I mean, I think that's not a bad idea. And then the Boynton Library, we already have a project over there that's doing a lot of work. And 400, is a lot to do, further upgrades, but, if it could all be paid for out of CPA and, bequest funds, then I say, why not? It just sort of finishes the work that we're undergoing right now.
Yeah, if they had, I mean, if it has funding to go with it, that's not free cash funding sources. I think I'm fine with that if it actually has funding, but the funding, I mean, those fundings are reasonable, that if they get accepted and they get, to get it, it's just the cable one, I'm not sure, with the,
Right.
because of the return earnings, that's where I get stuck on that. Not if there's a grant, if you get a grant, fine, you're gonna get a grant for it. But the earning part of it, that's the revenue that's coming in and that's where I get stuck, That's on their stuff. Other than that, like anything that they have with the grant or the pilot program of the light department, if they are to say, yeah, that would be subject to them saying yes. If they say no, then obviously it wouldn't happen. So again, that would be up to the light department, so I'd be fine with that. But on the return and earnings, on that aspect, I would be more comfortable to have an idea, only just because of things that recently came to light.
I think to jump off of what James was talking about, maybe we just pause the conversation about TCTV for a moment and we go down. So if we go down to number 28 and we look at what the sewer department's asking for an additional vehicle for their fleet, $50,000. While we don't have retained earnings for sewer historically has more than $50,000 in retained earnings. I don't suspect that would be any different this year, and there aren't any anticipated deficits that we've ever seen. And they didn't go to town meeting. I mean, they've gone to town meeting to use their retained earnings for their operating budget, but not to the detriment where it totally sides it down the drain. So where we're at with that is, I think, number 28. I think we can be confident enough to do it, recommending that they're using their retained earnings, which is what they had recommended as their funding source. Does anyone have any I guess what I'll open up is that, does anyone want to make a motion on line item number 28 for the sewer new vehicle? And for it to come out of sewer retained earnings is the recommendation.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Candace. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion from Candace, second by Danielle. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
Uh,
Liz.
is it appropriate to include in the motion the caveat that they have sufficient money and retained earnings?
Yeah, we can, we can word the motion a little bit differently where they should use it out of available retained earnings, or what was your language with that, to, that it needs to be taken from retained earnings, that is the recommendation, that is its dedicated funding source for it. With that caveat.
Yeah, that's the idea. It's just, yes, we're for it, but the money needs to come from their retained earnings.
Yeah, no,
They have to have it to get it. to
yes,
use it. Yes.
Yeah.
I amend that to that.
okay, so they have to have the sewer retained earnings. All right, do you accept that amendment, Danielle?
Yes.
Yes. So with that, is there any further discussion? All right, on the amended motion to approve the sewer vehicle line 28, and that it has to come out of the sewer retained earnings, how do you vote, Danielle?
Yes.
How do you vote, Liz?
Yes,
Candace?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so that motion passed 4-0. All right. Boynton Library Design and Electrical. So that comes from sources of funding. I just put there's a longer It's from a specific family's funds that were donated, and then also from the Community Preservation Act. So there were already dedicated funding sources for that. The caveat being that they should only be using the bequest funds or the I don't know how to word it. They're like special donation accounts for like very specific purposes, and I forget what the name of that one is. I think it begins with an N. I have to look back into my files. But that one they can use for the library, design and electrical, and then because it's a historic building, they're able to use Community Preservation Act as well. Anyone want to make a motion relative to the Boynton Library design and electrical?
I make a motion that, about the Boynton Library design and electrical, and, the fact that if they get CPA funds or any of those requested funds that they have under their power.
Okay. So Candace just made a motion. Does anybody second that motion?
Second.
Okay. Danielle seconded the motion. Is there any discussion on that? Once. Twice. All right, without any further discussion, we'll go to a vote. How do you vote, Danielle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes,
Candace?
Yeah.
And I vote yes as well. That passed 4-0 unanimously. All right, so with that. All right. So where do we want to start the discussion? We were talking about safety items,
Well, we have the, police vehicle with meal tax,
right?
and we have. And then,
Oh, Liz, what were you?
yeah, Mr. Chair, the last year, the meals tax paid for a police vehicle. And my memory may be wrong here, but I thought it was every other year it was a police vehicle, and on the other years it was, DPW or something in Bob's area.
So in terms of what the town has historically done, they've always registered that the meals tax was going for the, or what has been brought forward to town meeting, I should say, is that meals tax revenues towards the police vehicle. What has actually happened is a little bit different. I don't think it's, I don't know what I wasn't here when meals tax was proposed. I heard different things. I know that it should be going towards different police cruisers. It should also be going towards vehicles, or small highway vehicles or medium-sized highway vehicles like Bob had talked about at his last presentation. But I don't believe that we've been going back and forth between them. That's something that the committee can consider if they want to recommend it.
Can I ask a quick clarifying question? Again, new guy. Is the meals tax going into any particular reserve fund, or is it just general fund revenue?
General fund.
All right. So I think at the end of the day, what we're still talking about, even though it says meals tax there, is we're still talking about free cash. Now I think to what you were sort of alluding to, I think in your heads, it'd probably be important to keep in mind that whatever the meals tax comes out to, we should probably spend that amount of free cash on one of those items, a police vehicle or DPW. But I just want to make that, I just wanted to make sure I understood the distinction.
yeah, well, there was, when it comes to the meals tax, there was many discussions at town meeting on that. Many think that it should be separated into its own revenue, out of there into its own thing. And then they say we can't do it legally. We can. There's a whole discussion on that, on why we can't have that separated. And the residents have also discussed that they were like, they made it vocal on many occasions, either police or DPW. Going back and forth, we've heard it many different ways over the years. So that's the history of those two things. one, everybody would love to see it and not in the general listed someplace else if that was ever possible. And the other thing is, many would like to see it, you know, to do a small, vehicle for the DPW, you know, and not always do the police, you know. And, you know, we've heard it both ways.
Yeah, I mean, the board could establish a financial policy that to state that X amount of percent of meals tax will be spent on one of those items. It just means that X amount of free cash would end up being spent on
I
it.
don't know
So,
if they had anything, if there's anything official on the books. I just know it was a lot of discussion on town floor.
yeah,
Well, there's a lot of discussion last year on this committee too, and we recommended that it be a little bit, the way that it was in the comments, it was to indicate to the selectmen that it should be more transparent, the way that carries through instead of what's been going on. So,
it could be just a part of your final capital letter that is a short paragraph that mentions, you know, meals tax revenue in FY 26 came in at this, so in FY 27 we are going to spend X amount on police car or something. I think there's multiple ways you could skin that cat.
So
I mean, we can take a look at Bob's
what do we got for Bob?
equipment.
So, if I may, there are a couple of high priority that he is requesting, and they are very, very expensive. And so what I've done in the past was that we would actually finance these types of big items. So we wouldn't have to take a $238,000 chunk out of this year's free cash. We would take a much smaller amount to pay for the first year of a 5, 6, 7 year loan. And now obviously the 5, 6, 7 year cost is going to go up because you're going to pay interest on it. But in a town as small as us, it's always going to be difficult to dish out 238,000 for just one item, even if it's a very important item. And so we might want to hold off and on those two big ones and explore that option.
So the two big ones that you're talking about are the 238, which is the F-750,
Mhm.
and then the, what's the other one? The front end loader, the 217. Is that what we're looking at?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So
We're
I've
looking
had
at the
one.
utility pickup.
Well, no, I was just mentioning
Oh.
the utility pickup because we were talking about the meals tax revenue, and if
Yeah.
we're going to actually go between DPW and police department, what vehicle would we recommend the meals tax revenues for you, for the highway department? And I mentioned utility pickup because utility pickup was recommended in last year's capital report and did not get funded.
Okay.
So if
No.
we were going to choose something, it is up to the committee, but it may be of our interest to choose something from the list that
We
was
got,
supposed to be completed but was not completed.
we did the police we did the police one.
Police was done, I want to say through ARPA last year. There was a weird, I forget why we did it like that, but again, there were a few reasons why it was done that way. I think so that we could use more free cash differently, but don't quote me on that. But I do know that the police vehicle was done with ARPA funds last year, if I remember.
And Mr. Chair, just so you know, I just did the math on my cell phone calculator by taking out those two big ticket items. That was worth 450,000, so it brings down this total tax impact column to 707,000, which is probably still more than we'll be able to spend, but much more manageable.
Well, the estimated, that's when we have to start thinking about some of these items, and if, we can't recommend it this year, are we gonna basically put a placeholder for it in the next year and say we need to actually fund this?
Mhm.
So we can't do it this year, but they should be relatively close to the top of the list next year.
Mhm.
Generally, my thinking, it doesn't mean that the other committee members will agree with that. But
I just think that if we had it, if the committee had it on to approve it and it was approved and now, for the front, what was it called again? The utility pickup.
Right.
And the police got one last year. And if it's true, to go back and forth, then I would like to see the utility pickup truck on the highway department's, to go if we have the funding through the meals tax, if we have the money, then to have it go for the utility pickup truck. Since it was accepted but got passed over last year.
Right, well, the only caveat that I would say is that the utility pickup is $94,000 this year, and I don't think meals tax has ever gone up that amount. But one way or the other, we have to. I mean,
Well, they played it with other revenues, the 80-something thousand dollars.
I have no idea.
Oh, they're
Again,
paying for
wait,
that?
this was all in the same boat as free cash, but it's always been an issue where with regards to meals tax revenues. That there isn't a transparent throughput from when the town receives it to what items we put it towards because it ends up in the general fund. So that's been the big discussion on town meeting floor and been the big discussion between all the boards and committees for a while now. So if we did recommend the utility pickup, we need to keep in mind that it would be. I mean, all of it would be free cash. But if we're talking about meals tax that carried over into free cash versus whatever additional free cash we have to use, it would not, even in a perfect world, if we were able to isolate meals tax out, it's not going to be enough to pay for the $94,000 of that.
Well,
Unless it's higher this year.
well, so, I was gonna say that the utility pickup is pretty expensive. You know, I could talk to some of our counterparts. That might be also a financing, option, but I think it's worthwhile to definitely consider buying that, paying for that one way or another this fiscal year. But I also think keeping the course on a good schedule for police cruiser replacement is important. So, I think the chief is just trying to replace a vehicle that is got a decent amount of miles on it. And so I kind of would prioritize both of those vehicles, but definitely, the police vehicle, but I kind of would prioritize both of them, to be honest with you. But 94 is kind of a lot. We might be able to finance that. It's just the police cruisers are also getting up there, but I think that 80,000 also includes equipping it with different equipment. I think the base value is less than 80. But so that probably wouldn't be a financing thing, but the utility pickup might be worth financing as well.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the other thing we need to consider is how much maintenance, what the maintenance costs are on the different vehicles to see what really bottom line works out for the town. Because if the pickup truck it's replacing another pickup truck, right? What is the maintenance on that? What is I think he said that the body was rusting out, or the frame was rusting out on the truck. I agree with Mr. Ryan about the fact that they should probably both be prioritized. But if we can only afford one, I think it's the one that's going to cost us the most money when it comes to maintenance is the one that should be done.
Okay. So leaning more toward the utility pickup, isn't that my understanding, Liz?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I would really love to see the front end loader based on, how old it is and everything. But yeah, I don't think we have the money for that.
Yeah.
So based on discussion, does anybody want to make a motion to recommend the utility pickup with the use of meals tax revenues, including additional free cash as necessary?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Okay. We have a motion by Candace. Is anyone going to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I assume that if it makes sense to finance it, I can bring that back to you.
Yeah, you can bring that back by the next meeting and then we can, if we get time and then we can make the adjustment accordingly. And that's perfectly fine.
Right.
So with that, is there any other discussion? Once in place. All right, so on the motion to approve on item number 24, the utility pickup and recommend it with use of meals tax revenues and additional free cash is necessary. How do you vote, Danielle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Candace?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, so that passed 4-0. So with that. So with that, we can go back to the top if we want.
Does anyone recall from the chief's presentation, the vehicle that cruiser would be replacing? Is it a vehicle that has,
We
you know,
talked
three-
about the
the police
cruiser.
cruiser, yeah, is it a vehicle that's replacing a, 3-year-old vehicle or a 4-year-old vehicle with 200,000 miles on it type of thing?
What do we do right at the beginning?
Yeah, it was one of the first ones. I'm just gonna take a quick look and see if we have. I know there was another email that the chief sent out. I don't have it on me. But no, I don't know what specific vehicle this one's replacing. So that's something that we could pull information on if we need to.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
is there an opportunity, and I don't know if there is there an opportunity that after we, we rank stack these and go through it, that we take a final view, and if we end up rearranging things, we can? Is that,
yeah,
is that,
so what I'm trying to do is, and because we're not gonna get through all of these tonight, we're trying to just sort of figure out what are our top priorities right now. When we get information on any of the things, like with James talking about wanting to go look at different financing options, or, I'll look back and see if the police chief had anything about which vehicle this was replacing. I think it was an email that he had sent us, that I forwarded out to everybody. Or if there's any other information on that. We can come back and we can revise this right before we finalize our. All of these votes tonight can be completely reversed if that's the committee's wish. So nothing is set in stone until we get to that point. Does that make sense, Liz?
yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay. So. With that, I'd like to look at item number 2, the radar trailer replacement. We do have some insurance settlement funds. And I don't know if I have to look back at the presentation, because the way that it was written in the packets that we had gotten was that we have all over $3,000, that the total cost was $9,355 for the radar trailer replacement. But some of that would be paid off by a insurance settlement from when the one that it's replacing got destroyed. So it was something that was recommended last year. It wasn't replaced. We should probably replace that. I don't know what anybody's thoughts are with the radar trailer replacement.
Oh. I think if you do it, if we get,
Is this one of those mobile, like you drive by and it shows, yeah, thank you.
yeah, it got.
Let me guess, someone sped into it. I wonder what they clocked in at right before they hit it.
So with that, on item number 2, to recommend the radar trailer replacement. Anyone want to make a motion on that?
And that's with the funding for the insurance.
Yeah, that would, yeah, there was an insurance, I believe. The chief had marked that it was $3,757 is the insurance settlement. So then the balance of that is what would pay for it, but in total, it's $9,355 was the estimated cost.
Okay.
So what probably happened was it was insured for, oh, sorry, it just slipped out of my brain, insured for, it's called, actual value cost. And so the thing was probably a certain amount of years old. And so when it got destroyed, they come out and they're like, okay, it would have been valued at 3,757 now, even though it's a $9,000 thing because all these assets depreciate. Usually we insure our cars for replacement value, which adds a little to our premium. But if you ever get a police car, totaled or something along those lines, you don't want to be suddenly down a police car and you owe, $15,000 because of depreciation.
Yeah, it was $3,707, the insurance towards it. I have the application right here.
Yeah.
And the original, the whole total was $9,355. Yeah, I'd like to make a motion
So you'd like to make a motion to recommend.
for them to use the insurance money towards the replacement and then the final, amount, free cash.
Okay, so we have a motion on item number 2 on the radar trailer replacement from Candace. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Candace and a second from Danielle. Is there any discussion on this? On once. Twice. That will go to a vote. How do you vote, Danielle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes,
Candace?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That passed 4-0.
Yeah, he doesn't write anything about the funding on them.
So are there any other, so besides the police vehicle replacement, are there any other high priority safety items that we see on here that we really need to recommend for this upcoming school year?
Which one's this one?
What do we-
the generator and the windows.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, one is gonna save us money, the windows, and the generator is gonna keep people,
Safe.
yeah,
Right,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. And actually, both of those items were recommended last year. So why don't we, when we do the final sheets, I will number them based on how we voted, but we can renumber them based on priority at that point. Senior center generator, line item number 17. Does anyone want to make a motion to recommend that?
I do.
Okay, Candace makes a motion to recommend that. Does anybody second that?
I'll second it.
Okay. So we have a motion from Candace, seconded by Liz. Is there any discussion? Danielle? Oh, why am I?
No, I don't have anything to say.
Oh, all right. Any discussion going once? Going twice? All right, now we'll go to the vote. How do you vote, Danielle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes,
Candace?
Yes,
All right, and I vote yes as well. That's 4-0. All
and
right,
then I'll do the windows.
well, actually, let's total up what we've got so far.
Oh. Sorry.
No, that's okay. everything that we've done so far, if we're talking about just the utility pickup, the senior center generator, and the radar trailer replacement. That is about $187,919 so far. And for that, I took the estimated taxpayer funded expense of the radar trailer replacement, already including the insurance settlement fund, so it's the 5,500.
This pushes me to believe that it's probably gonna be a good idea to try and finance that, the $94,000 one. Because we're already pushed up against, our kind of goal tonight of 200,000, which
Mm.
probably isn't too far off of what we could actually afford. Before we talk about the windows, can I just jump to something? So when I first started, I did a tour of all the different buildings and everything, and I went and saw all the schools. Something that was kind of alarming to me, which precipitated the request for the bullet resistant window at the that's the elementary school, was that when you go there and if you're buzzed in to the, what do they call that, the vestibule, if you're buzzed in, and there's a chance you can be buzzed in if they think you're a parent or something. Excuse me, as you can tell, I'm sick. So once you're in that vestibule, the doors in front of you are still locked. So that's a safety measure. However, the glass, and I wouldn't even call it glass, it's more of a plexi window sort of thing that is right there for the office staff to see you, is something any grown man could push their way into. And once you are in that room, you're in the school. And so that's why the superintendent is recommending this, because it is a it is a safety issue, and in America and in the time we're living in, that is a little worrisome for me. And it looks like it's only about $7,000 to mitigate something that is probably a real concern. So I would just like the committee to strongly think about that. It's not a lot compared to the other, items that we're kind of looking at. And it's a serious flaw, I guess, in that initial design. I don't blame anyone for it, because I'm sure, because the building's beautiful and they did a great job, building it. And hopefully there's no problems, as far as the engineering goes or anything, but that unfortunately is a flaw. Now, if you're not buzzed into the vestibule, all set, but I could see someone, I could see it being an issue if someone was buzzed into that first section and they weren't supposed to be. It almost makes the second set of doors useless. Yeah.
Does anyone have anything else they want to discuss on item number 14, the bullet resistant windows, TES?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I do. For the $7,000 that it would, first of all, I'm in support of a bulletproof window there. What, for $7,000, with the amount of money that the school has in its I don't know what they call it. It's their rainy day fund, sort of like our, the free cash to the other things. They
Very
They
good,
have
Mr.
enough.
Assessor.
Mhm.
Yeah, the excess
They-
efficiency.
Yeah, they have plenty of money in there for the $7,000. I am in support of the window, just not how it's being funded.
I am the same. I'm in support of the window. The school should definitely do it. Should have done it, knowing it with the other funding that they have.
Without knowing, the only caveat I would add to that is without knowing whatever their intended plans are for excess and deficiency, or how they've traditionally used excess and deficiency. Because I know their excess and deficiency was hurt by their E&D. I would lean more towards the other items, 15, 16, and 7, or no, yeah, items number 15 and 16. I think that we don't need to recommend this year if that's what the committee wants to do. Item number 14, it should be on everybody's top priority list. But again, without knowing what their financing position is with their E&D. And I'd have to look back on the presentation as to why they brought this forward to us specifically.
They,
Um,
they didn't say. Other than it was a need, a big safety need.
Would the committee like me to have any sort of conversation with the superintendent and get you information? Like, should I ask him what he's been using excess and deficiency on in the past and what he plans to use it on this year?
That would be wonderful.
Well, it's a bigger conversation than that, because I mean, you can talk about it from the terms of E&D, but you can talk about it from the terms of their operating budget as well, because I can't imagine why. I can't imagine
Can't
why their facilities wouldn't place that as more of a top priority. But there's other caveats with this, with the fact that, again, this building is on town land, it is town property, and it's a long-term lease with them. You know what, I think I'm gonna do something, and depending on the outcome of it, determine whether or not you should talk to the superintendent or not. I make a motion to recommend the bulletproof resistant windows at Templeton Elementary School. Recommend that for use as a free cash. Does anyone second that motion?
Second.
All right, so a motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right. Seeing that there's no further discussion, how do you vote, Danielle?
Yes.
Liz?
No, because it's not coming out of the school budget.
Okay. Candace?
I'd have to say no, they should be paying for it out of their money. They had 110 to do that survey for the roof.
Okay, and I vote yes, so that was a tied vote, so motion fails. So with that being said, can we please go back to the superintendent and see what's going on with that? And why did their facilities department bring it forward to us?
The fact that this is a high security issue that it wasn't taken care of a long time ago through the means that the school could have had, or brought to the town's attention way sooner than now.
Just
If I
for my
may,
own
if
Yeah.
I may just add, they
Yeah.
could have used ARPA funds, their ARPA funds from last year. They had significant ARPA funds. So they could have done that.
So historically speaking, I guess, what is sort of I don't know if you could answer this question, it's sort of a broad question, but, I guess historically speaking, they bring certain items to you as capital. And then I assume certain other things they pay for out of E&D or whether they're operating. So do they have the same threshold that the town has? They bring anything over, was it 5 or 10,000 to you for capital?
So,
That was 10, right? And this is 7?
right, it's 7. Part of the issue is also because the way that the regional agreement is written with regards to capital expenses of the two towns. And then you have the extra caveated issue of the ongoing discussions between Templeton and Phillipston regarding their elementary schools, or the former Phillipston Elementary School and the current Templeton Elementary School. So the reason why they would bring this forward is because in full to the town of Templeton is because it sits on town of Templeton land. And in their purview, they would bring it forward to the town in order to pay for the cost of that, because that's it.
I see. So,
That's the reasoning, but there's a larger, I'll call it political dynamic involved with that.
yeah, I'm familiar with
That
that.
as an issue.
Yeah.
But no, I would communicate with the district why specifically their facilities hasn't prioritized this much sooner, what they would be doing or not be doing. Ultimately, budgetary decisions from them are under the purview of the school committee, but the superintendent should already know what's going on with that, so that would be my,
Okay.
Very surprising.
and then you can bring that information back to us. Bring it back to us one way or the other, whether you hear anything very specific or whether you don't, and then at least we know and we can figure out what we want to do next.
Right.
Okay, with that, it's 6:15, right? I'm not, okay. With that, we have recommended some items. We recommended over $187,000 in free cash that is yet to be certified. if nobody's opposed to it at this point, unless there's any items on here that we really want to talk about.
Can I just, one more thing?
Yeah.
I've gotten some information. So the police vehicle that's being replaced is replacing a vehicle with 133,000 miles on it. The chief is trying to stick to a 4-year vehicle replacement. 133,000 doesn't sound like a lot. This has to be repeated all the time. 133,000 for a police vehicle is not like 133,000 for a personal vehicle. These vehicles don't roll all the time, but they're on all the time. And so 133,000 and up and 3-4 years old is getting old for a cruiser. And the older they get, the more issues they have. And we can't have issues with cruisers because if a call comes in and the vehicle doesn't turn on, or they hit the gas and suddenly it dies, someone could be having a major problem and no one's coming, or you wait for mutual aid from Winchendon, and you're having a major issue where you need a police officer. So obviously that's why these are expensive, and so the chief's trying to stick to a 4-year cycle, and this would be replacing 133,000 mile vehicle, and obviously there's a lead time, so we're by the time this actually gets replaced, there's gonna be a lot more miles on it. So just for your consideration.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for the information from the police chief.
I have the senior center carport. They're trying to get earmarks for that.
Right, well,
Oh, I'm sorry, this vehicle's actually 7 years old.
this vehicle's 7 years old.
Yep.
Okay.
So that makes sense. I remember having a conversation with Chief Bennett, where there were some years in the past where I think we weren't able to replace police vehicles, so the fleet got older.
Okay. Right, because if even if we were to relook at this, we're talking about an $80,000 item and $94,000 item for utility pickup or any other combination of things.
If my recommendation is to approve the police vehicle, and I'm going to try and look into the financing options for the 94,000. Keep in mind, the 80,000 consists of a certain amount of money to retrofit the car. The car itself is less, but with the $94,000 utility pickup, is that what it is? Utility pickup. That's just the cost of one vehicle, so that makes a little more sense to finance.
So I would be inclined that we should approve the police vehicle. We should see what our financing options are when we come back to our next meeting, and then make adjustments accordingly, one way or the other, if we can keep it that way, or if we can't keep it that way. At least we'll have more information by then. So with that being brought up, I'll just throw out there, I would entertain a motion to recommend the police vehicle replacement.
I'll second it.
Well, does anyone want to make a motion?
Oh, I'll make the motion.
Okay. Does anyone want to second that motion?
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion from Candace, seconded by Danielle. Is there any further discussion?
I'd really rather wait on changing our vote until we have more information.
Right, I wouldn't say that we're changing our vote on this. I would add it to the recommended items, the short list of recommended items. We look at what the financing is, and then if we need to start shifting things, then we start to shift items.
So you're saying we'd be if this is a yes vote, we'd be recommending both vehicles right now?
We'd be recommending both vehicles right now. It would put us over what our estimated amounts are, but again, we don't even know what our working capital is right now, so if we were to recommend that, oops. Just turn it on.
Okay, all right, thank you.
8, 9.
Means to
We'd be
taken
recommending
out.
2 set, right, we can change anything that we want at the last minute when we're working on the final part of the report. But at least we've identified the items that we really want to prioritize, so that way we can try and fall in line with the rest of the items where we want to put them on capital list. Or how we want to plan it out for future years. Does that make sense, Liz?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
But everyone just keep in mind, if we do vote for this, you know, again, our total amount recommended for FY 2027 will be over 268,000. But again, we don't even know what our working capital is yet, so that's where we're going with that. Is there any further discussion on this? No? All right. With that, we'll go to vote. How do you vote, Danielle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes,
Candace?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That passed 4-0. All right. So are there any other items that really jump out to everybody on spreadsheet in terms of safety or high priority that we're really gonna look at, or are we, or do we need to take a break from looking at this and regroup at our next meeting and then start to sort through it even further?
did we get an update? I don't remember seeing one. There may have been one. An update on the estimate for the coverage for the COA vans?
What do you mean? Are you talking about the carport or?
Yeah, the carport.
I didn't receive any extra information. I have it down as 37,000 for that. I'd have to look back at, I don't know if we've gotten anything. No, I haven't gotten anything from Bob or Jackie about that. I had 37,000 from their application. I can look. I don't think there was a quote included with that. I don't know where that stands.
Well, they
Okay,
were looking,
because, go ahead, Candace.
they were looking into, possibly they may think that the money will have to go a little bit higher. And they were looking at possibly writing a letter and to request an earmark. That's what they were working on that.
Right, but you know, the getting the money from the earmark is pretty remote. I mean, you don't ask, you don't get.
Right.
So, I mean, I would like to approve it if we, you know, the carport, if we could figure out how to pay for it. I mean, yeah.
Well,
Mr. Chair.
yeah.
All right, I am talking to the municipal light plan about this, but nothing has been determined or settled yet. But I am asking them about that because I could tell, or I believe that something like this would be quite a feel good
Yeah.
initiative for the commissioners.
So can we, I mean, if everyone's open to it, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the carport if funding can be, if we can find funding to cover the cost.
How about non-tax impact funding?
Yeah.
That works.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, Liz has made that motion and Candace has seconded it to approve item number 30, the senior center carport, with use of non-taxpayer funded expenses. Is there any further discussion on it? All right. With that, how do you vote, Danielle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Candace?
Yeah.
I vote yes as well. That motion passed 4-0. Okay. So with that, is there anything else that we really want to talk about, at least tonight, on the list of items?
And we don't have the money, but it would have been that doghouse outside.
Okay.
What he's referring to, that opening to that basement, that's rotting. Cause I think that's gonna be that will again be an issue with this building.
Mr. Chair, when's our next meeting?
Our next meeting is scheduled for, it's December 1st, right?
Yeah, all right. So we still won't have free cash by then.
Yeah, we likely wouldn't have free cash by then. That brings us to a good point. I'll check, because I think it is December 1st. That kind of brings us to a point where, and I'll ask the town administrator this because he would likely know. December, there's 2 meetings of the select board in December, is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yes, the 8th and it's 2 weeks after that, the 24th.
The
Yeah.
22nd, it would be.
Wait a second.
The Monday.
Second, the Monday before. So I guess. I don't know what's on tap for the selectmen's schedules for December. We have to fit in this report one way or the other. Is there going to be an issue if we were to do the presentation on the 22nd versus doing it on the 8th? Because the requirement is just that we have to do it before the end of 20.
No, we have nothing scheduled for the 22nd yet. It's too far out. So that could be a priority. If you don't mind sending me an email tomorrow or today, whatever, reminding me, and I'll put that on the
The 22nd.
22nd agenda. Yeah.
All right, so with that, if we know that we're gonna present on the 22nd, that gives us a little bit of wiggle room in terms of, because if we were gonna go on the 8th, then we would have to have met on the 1st in order to get everything organized. And with the holiday next week, it's possible that some of what we've talked about this evening, we won't have all of the information that we need. So with that, that brings up the issue of, do we still want to meet on the 1st of December, or do we want to look at options for that next week, the week of the 8th? Because it doesn't make sense for us to come back so soon. If we had a working capital number, it would make sense for us to try and button up some of these loose ends and then come back on the 1st and figure everything out, and then be ready for whether it be the 22nd or the 8th, the report would at least be done by that point. At this stage, I don't think we have enough information, and I think that we're just gonna be struggling with, what order we're gonna prioritize things in without some clear guide rails on that, unless we set those guide rails ourselves. So with that being said, do we want to meet on the 1st, or do we want to start looking at dates the following week on week of December 8th?
I mean, I think it's logical that we push it out the week of the 8th. Maybe we'll have more data by then, more information.
Right, then we can sit, it would be, because we've been on a sprint with having meeting after meeting almost every week, and then we've only had a week in between for this one for the past couple of weeks. So it would give us all time to digest everything that we've talked about this evening, see if we're comfortable with what we're doing, get the information we need, and then come back and finalize everything at that point. Because I don't know how much more, without more information, and anybody could interrupt me and tell me that I'm wrong, but I don't know if we're gonna make much more progress this evening than where we're at. Seeing people shake heads,
I tend to agree with you. Yes.
yeah,
That would give more information on financing for the vehicles.
if that's gonna be an option, if we're gonna go.
Yeah,
that
But it
direction.
gives, I mean, with next week being Thanksgiving, I mean, and then, other things that are going on for the rest of this week, that would be probably easier lift.
I mean, I'm
Come up with that.
I'm worried that, free cash won't even be certified until, the week of the 15th. But how much time do you need to finalize your report once everything's voted on?
Once we figure out the order of what we're going to do, occasionally, well, not occasionally, because of time constraints, because sometimes the selectmen have only had one meeting in December. Sometimes we've said, this is our priority list, this is what we're gonna be doing. Generally speaking, this is how we want the report updated. Whoever the chairman is at the time will update the report accordingly, and then we would actually vote in front of the selectmen that night. We would send a draft out to them. That would be virtually the same as what we would vote on, except maybe a few minor adjustments. We would meet in front of them, we would vote on the report then and there, and then we would present it. But at that point, you're just buttoning up little things at that. It's not, you've already gone through everything.
Just a matter of if the free cash doesn't come in until after, then it's a matter of, that would be part of our meeting, our next meeting, to say, if this doesn't happen and we're under.
Well,
something like that.
The only caveat is if we're meeting on.
I mean,
So
there's two ways you could do this. I could I could look at the 5-year total and say, look, I think, we might have X amount in free cash. And, we decide as a committee how much of that we want to recommend out of without knowing, other things. There's one way to do it, or you could try and push your final meeting as late as possible. That would still give you time to get me the report so I could put it in the select board packets on the 18th. So that would give you the maximum amount of time.
Because even if we're, let's say that, if 18th is the last possible day that we can provide your office the report, then
Well, technically speaking, I could update the packets on Friday. I work Fridays, and I could update the packets and send it to them because that's still, wait. Well, as long as it's on the agenda.
yeah.
Yeah.
You could send it to me Friday, the 19th, if you needed the time.
As long as it's on the agenda, that's what the big thing is, getting the material.
Right.
It's not ideal, but
Whatever we do, like, let's say we theoretically met on the 17th, whatever we vote on that night, I would get it out for the morning of the 18th. In a draft form. If we do what we've done in past years, let's say that our next meeting to discuss everything ends up being on the 17th, theoretically. We vote on our recommendations that night, but there are a few things that all of us would like to see how they're going to be written in the report before we do a final approval of it, like last year. I could get a draft ready, send it out to everybody, and send it to the selectmen. Similar to prior years, they would get a draft. I would have a meeting scheduled for that Monday on the 22nd. We would all meet here as a majority, and then we would finalize it in front of the selectmen and then go from our presentation from there. So if we're talking about moving things at the very last possible moment, we can go up to the 17th. It's not an issue.
It's your call, Mr. Chair, and the committees, but
if we do the heavy lifting on the week of the 8th. And you're ready, then if there's not a lot of heavy lifting, it's just a fine-tune meeting. I'm not opposed to doing an extra meeting, just to fine-tune it if it's gonna be a short one.
If we're talking about doing a meeting and doing a fine-tuning meeting, then we're gonna need time in advance. So. What if
Mr.
we? Yeah,
How much time, seeing how you're the one that's going to be writing the report, how much time do you need to be able to write the report?
how much time do I need? I generally have by the time we get to, because after today, I'm gonna start updating some things with it.
So you're just tweaking at that point, right?
Sure, that's gonna be my answer for that, for sure. It'll be done. That's just the
No,
reality
no,
of it.
no, no. I'm envisioning you being up all night and so I'm just trying to avoid that.
It's fine, so what we could do is maybe we tentatively schedule for December 10th. And we see what happens, we gather everything by then. December 10th. Everything's been submitted from the accountant.
well, so what about, here's a different idea. What about scheduling a meeting for the 15th, and then the morning of the 15th, if it's still not certified, we
Move it to the 17th.
yeah.
It doesn't mean that we're gonna get a number one way or the other.
Right.
What we could actually do is we could meet on the 15th, regardless of what we know in terms of information with free cash. We would at least have enough time to build an estimate. We could go through everything again, pretty much get to the end of our capital planning process. Then we can meet again on the 17th. And if we have a number by then we can change things as we will in the report at that point. We could meet 2 more times on the 15th and the 17th if everyone is agreeable with that. Those meetings.
Yeah, I think it
Or
would.
deals, Zoom for one of them.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
It's probably meetings those days, right?
Yeah, Hannah,
So just to let you know, Conservation Commission is meeting on the 15th, so you would have a hard stop at 6 p.m.
Yeah, okay. So if we had a hard stop at 6 p.m., then just to counteract that, maybe we, does anyone have a problem if we, on the 15th, met at 4 instead of 4:30?
I work here anyway.
How about you guys? Is it gonna be a long haul for you?
Yeah.
Liz, would 4 p.m. work on the 15th, if we were to do that?
Yeah, four would work, but not 3:30.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna do 3:30.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Okay, so we will do
Mhm.
4 p.m. on the 15th, and then we would do for the 17th a regular time of 4:30 p.m. And I will post both of those, so that's where we're at tonight.
We have to get the information from TCTV.
Right, well, I need to look back at their packets, and then
Yeah.
if we need to ask any follow-ups based on what we talked about tonight, we can do that, and
Right.
then. we can-
That
we
should,
can
I mean,
get
once we get the data on that, that
Yeah,
shouldn't be
should
that
be
bad.
good.
Yeah.
All right, so with that being said, does anybody else have any thoughts? Or are we good with the discussion that we've had so far tonight? Okay, so hearing nothing, we have committee member comments. I think we've all given a lot of comments tonight, but this is final opportunity. Does anybody have any last things that they want to share for this evening? Danielle,
No.
Liz,
No, I'm good.
Candace,
I'm good.
James?
Good.
Okay, and I'm good as well. I have nothing. All right, so we are scheduled for the 15th at 4 p.m. is our next meeting. And then I'll also schedule a meeting for Wednesday, the 17th at 4:30 p.m. And I'll cancel the meeting for December 1st. So no need to worry about that. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it. I'll first it.
Okay,
Thanks, sir.
moved it. Is anyone gonna
Moved it.
second it?
Sorry.
Second.
All right, Danielle seconded the motion to adjourn. The motion to adjourn has no debate, so we'll go through the vote. Danielle, how do you vote? Liz,
Yes.